How did I go from charging $500 a month for my services to $6,800 per month plus a percentage of sales while doing less? It's because I found a rich niche, and in this video, I'm gonna cover my 7 traits that I look for in a rich niche. If we haven't met before, my name is Daniel Schulte. I run a marketing agency, and when I first started my business, I basically took on every client that I could get and then ultimately decided to go into a niche. Now, if you're not convinced on niching down, that's going to be another video for another time, but basically I decided to niche down into the restaurant space, and I really didn't go through any type of analysis or thinking. I just got some results for a client, and I was like, hey, I could probably duplicate this with other restaurants as well. And unfortunately, it turned out to be one of the worst decisions. Because of the industry that I decided to pick. So in this video, I'm gonna go over the 7 traits that I personally use when picking a rich niche and how I came about with each principle. So that way you don't have to make the same mistake that I did of choosing a broke niche, and instead you can go straight for where the money is. So the first trait that I look for is that it's high ticket and high margin. See, with restaurants, they have a lot of costs, right? Their food, their labor, their rent makes up about 80 to 90%, which means if they sell $100 of food, they may only be making $10 in profit at the end of the day. So when I was working with restaurants, I had to sell like 200 pizzas in order to break even just on my cost and the marketing cost alone, not even talking about making a profit. Now, if we look at some other things, other industries that sell high ticket, if you take a lawyer or if you take a dentist who does, high-end veneers, let's say, you only need to sell one $10,000 case, $20,000, sometimes even $40,000 case. And not only is all the marketing and all your services paid for, but they're able to take home a lot more. The second trait is that it can be sold nationwide. See, with restaurants or local businesses, what sucks is that a lot of them are only limited to a 5-mile to a 50-mile radius, right? A plumber, for example, is not going to be going from Missouri all the way out to Florida in order to service a client. So what I do now is I look for things that can be sold at least statewide, but preferably nationwide. Things like insurance, and primarily things that can be sold through the phone, which brings us to trait number 3. Trait number 3 of your rich niche is finding something that can be sold through the phone. Not to knock e-com or anything like that, but typically if someone's deciding on a $5,000 or a $20,000 purchase, they're gonna get on the phone and talk to somebody before making that decision. If you look at someone who buys cars, now obviously Carvana is changing the game, stuff like that, but somebody's gonna wanna go and do a test drive, or they're gonna wanna talk to somebody about the car, even if they do all their research before ever buying. So the third thing that I look for is making sure that it can be sold over some type of consultation. The fourth rich trait that I look for is selling a cure as opposed to a preventative. So if you look at someone who's bleeding out on the sidewalk, they're calling the ambulance and they're going to the emergency room, and they don't care what the bill is going to be. All they care about is getting there and getting fixed. The bill comes later, and you can see why emergency room services are one of the highest highest ticket things that there are on the market, because people move like they're fast, they move like they're hungry, and typically price does not become a factor when you're selling things for a cure as opposed to preventative. Let's take another example. How many people in the United States do you think don't realize that they have cancer? Probably a fair amount, right? Now, they're not doing anything in order to prevent the cancer, but if they go and they get a test and they get diagnosed with cancer, they'd probably pay any amount of money if there was a pill that could cure cancer. If you just look at the difference of the mindset of people who are trying to prevent something versus people who are trying to cure something, it's huge, and it makes the selling process way easier. Rich trait number 5, recession-proof products and services. If we go into a recession, 95% of the people are going to cut the immediate expenditures that aren't necessary. If you take a look at a restaurant, right, people are probably going to cut their eating out bill. However, there are certain services and products that even if a recession hits are still going to be needed. For example, if someone gets in a car accident that's not their fault, personal injury attorneys are still going to be in a huge demand, especially because they are contingency fee based, which means that they don't get paid unless they win for you. So whether it's a great economy or a down economy, I always like to make sure that the industry is going to be unaffected by changes in economic conditions. Rich trait number 6, I want to make sure that the industry can use interruption-based advertising. At the end of the day, there's 2 different types of advertising. There is what's called interruption-based advertising, which is a commercial or a radio. You aren't really seeking anything out. Just think of Snuggie, right? Snuggie comes on with a commercial. They catch your attention. Nobody's going to Google to look up Snuggie. But on the other hand, there's intent-based advertising. So if someone gets a leak in their bathroom, they might go and they might search for a plumber near me or a personal injury lawyer near me. That's what's called intent-based advertising. And the problem with intent-based advertising is that typically only about 6 to 7% of the market is in that phase at any given time. So it really shrinks the amount of people that you can market to, and the costs are super, super, super high because everybody's competing over that 10% of the market. However, if you switch to interruption-based advertising, which isn't applicable to every industry, like a locksmith, for example, probably won't go and use interruption-based advertising, right? But if you have an industry or a niche that can use interruption-based advertising, then your market expands geometrically because you're not limited to that 10% of people anymore, but the entire market now becomes targetable. And rich niche trait number 7, back-end products and services. One-time sales are great, especially if it's high ticket and high margin and they have a good amount in there, but I really, really enjoy products and services that have a monthly recurring back end. Look at Netflix, look at Amazon Prime. Not only does it allow you to have cash flow coming in every single month so you don't have to go out and hunt for that next deal just to stay alive, but it also allows you to outspend your competitors to acquire more customers, and it allows you to have much better forecasted growth because it becomes compounding interest. The more that you stack that monthly recurring revenue, the easier it's going to be to grow the business and make the advertising work on the front end because you have that cushion on the back end that will allow you to charge that credit card or that bank account every single month. Those are my 7 rich niche traits that allowed me to go from charging $500 a month per client to $6,800 per month per client while doing less and also charging a percentage of sales on the back end of what I generate for them. So again, the rich niche traits in no particular order: high ticket and high margin, sold nationwide, sold over the phone or a consultation, selling a cure, not selling a preventative. It's always needed and recession proof. You can use interruption based advertising, and they have a back end or recurring component to the business model. Thanks for checking out the video. I hope you found it super helpful. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you know when my next video is going to drop, and go ahead and check out the other videos on this channel so I can help you make more money.